Welcome to the Jarvis Sam Show. I am your host, Jarvis Sam. This week is heavy, 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 heavy. Got a lot to talk about this week. Starting off with obviously the Derek Chauvin verdict happened earlier this week. So we're going to get into that. We also had a situation that occurred around the same time as that verdict, which is out there in Ohio with Ma'Khia Bryant, who was killed by a police officer just moments before we got the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. And then we just got some commentary from some people that I really want to talk about to kind of wrap things up. But yeah, this week, loaded show. So first and foremost, this week we got the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. Derek Chauvin is the police officer who murdered George Floyd about 10 months ago, back last May, had his knee on George Floyd's neck for around 9 minutes and 29 seconds, killing him right there on the spot in broad daylight in front of Cup food store out there in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, this week, the jury deliberated and they reached a verdict really quickly. And historically, when verdicts are quick, historically, they are typically not guilty verdicts. So a lot of people were nervous about that because of that and because it was so quick. I actually thought the opposite. I thought because it was so quick, I thought it would be the right thing. I did think that I didn't think that they would actually find him guilty on all three accounts, but that was awesome. So to round it up, yes, they found Derek Chauvin guilty of all three counts that he was charged for: manslaughter, first, I think it was second degree murder, and I can't remember what the other one was. But the max sentencing on one of them was 40 years. One was 25, I believe, and then the other one was 10. So it'll be interesting to see what the sentencing is. They had that set out for about 8 weeks for him to have the sentencing. We'll see how that goes. I'll tell you what, I got a text message that day. It was I believe it was Tuesday. I got a text message saying, "Hey, around 3:30 Houston time, they're going to announce the verdict." And I tell you what, I was ready. I was ready to go see, how that all shook out. And they said it would be between 3:30 and 4 o'clock my time, and it was. So at 3:30, I was with the TV ready to see what's going on, and I shot a few text messages to make sure that people in my close circle were aware of the verdict about to happen. And I'll tell you what, it was incredible to see all the people that were gathered in Minneapolis. There were people gathered also here in Houston because George Floyd was from Houston. He went to Jack Gates High School. He was big in our community here in Houston. He was a part of some rap groups out here, and he hung out with some rappers, and of course Steven Jackson and everything. So he's big out here in Houston. Or he had a big presence here in Houston. So it was felt. So, we had gatherings here and, just seeing those thousands and thousands of people gathered outside. And I can only imagine, I don't know what all shut down in Minnesota, but it would have been a great idea to have a lot of the city shut down just because, man, that thing could have went so many different ways, pending the outcome of this trial. So it's announced that he's guilty on all three accounts. He has this look on his face like, whoa, like, oh, I'm guilty, and it was refreshing. It was like a burden was lifted when hearing that. Because I'll be honest, they told us it was going to be between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, and here it's 3:55, and we still are looking at the crowds and still talking about the trial, and not even in the courtroom. And I'm like, okay, what's really going on? And that's where I think my anxiety, kind of started going left. And I've shared my story before about the Trayvon Martin situation when that verdict was announced, and so now it's like, I don't want to say that I am numb to the non guilty verdicts or what have you, but man, I definitely wasn't going to be surprised if for some reason they found him not guilty, and but that just wasn't going to feel good. And so it was the first step. Notice, knowing that this man is convicted, and he will be sentenced. It's a big first step. It really is. It's a big first step um, in the justice movement, right? I spoke about, if we don't get justice, or if we don't get accountability here in this George Floyd incident, where George Floyd became like the face of social justice. If for some reason we don't get a guilty verdict here and there's accountability had, like, you've got to wonder if we'll ever get it, right? So I think it was one of those situations where it had to happen, right? It had to. Those crowds that were gathered. Listen, people aren't stupid. They know for a fact all those crowds that were gathered, those were going to turn into riots and everything else if that verdict had been anything else, right? So their hand was kind of forced. Um, if you want to have a good city and a city that's still standing tomorrow, you might want to make the right decision. So I think for that reason alone, George Chauvin is just going to have to take whatever he has coming to him, because they ain't going to let us mess up this city, right? So um, that's really and truly, how I feel about it. And I know a lot of people are excited about it and feel like, oh, justice is served, and I don't want to, be, a downer. I don't want to be negative about it. It's a good first step for sure. But also, what I don't want to be out here and jump the gun, right? That there's still, like, this is only a small step towards justice. Like, well, we've got to understand that accountability and justice are two separate things. Accountability is a step towards justice, right? So we finally held someone accountable who committed a crime against a Black person maliciously, right? We finally see this happen, because all these other countless situations, we never saw it happen. So it is a step towards justice, but it's not justice. Justice is George Floyd being able to have lived through that situation to see it out. George Floyd maybe being just handcuffed and arrested alive and just taken in and able to defend his position in court or what have you. That's going to be justice. But as of right now, we're not there. We're still not there. This is just that first step. The other piece to that is the guy hasn't been sentenced yet, and from what I've heard, from what I've read, Minnesota is not very strict on these things, and I hear that this judge is not. This judge is definitely a white supremacist, and I I believe that he is the one that determines the sentencing. And like I said, from what I heard, Minnesota, Minneapolis, they're pretty lenient when it comes to police and sentencing and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting. Maybe they're going to throw the book at him. Hopefully they do, and just make an example out of him. But I wouldn't hold your breath. I think the sentencing is what's going to matter the most of all this. Yes, it's great that we got the guilty verdict. It's great that he's going to have to, be he's going to be held accountable, that he's going to have to serve some time, no matter what it is. It's great. It's a great first step. But we still have Breonna Taylor who hasn't gotten justice. We still got Dante Wright who hasn't, who we need to make sure that Kim Porter, feels that same wrath, right? She should get the same exact sentencing, or the same exact verdicts that Derek Chauvin got, right? So still a long road ahead. But I tell you what, each and every time that these things happen and accountability is served, we're going to move forward and to a better place of justice, because I've talked about it since my very first podcast, probably back last June. I'm coming up on 1 year, y'all. So, and I meant to mention that at the top of the show, coming up on 1 year here in June. So, I got some real special things planned that I want to do for the 1 year anniversary of the show. So stay plugged in for that. But from the very first episode, I talked about accountability, and accountability is just that first step towards justice. Great first step. Good job. Kudos to the jurors for reaching a quick decision, not dragging it out any further. It was really an open and shut case. I know we've seen open and shut cases not be so open and shut when it comes to Black people before, but they got it right this time. So now let's just wait for the sentencing, see what happens, and try to move forward. I think it was definitely a sigh of relief. But as I reflected, it was I really didn't know what to expect from me as a Black man, as someone who has been in situations where racial profiling was a thing, and everything, and I didn't know what to expect from my emotions either way. Like I was just like, but for me, it was a moment of just reflection, and it was a moment where it was a sigh of relief, right? But at the same time, like after that sigh of relief, I started really, I didn't want to, I want to think this thing through logically and thoroughly, because somewhere, somehow, I feel that we're going to somehow we're going to get shortchanged on this deal. And so I want to just see it all play out before we really look at it as a true victory. Again, not taking away anything from this being an amazing first step towards some sort of justice, towards some sort of normalcy for Black people. But we've got a long way to go still. And in the middle of all this, we saw Dante Wright get killed in the same city. Dante Wright's teacher was George Floyd's girlfriend. Like, and for those things to be so intertwined in the middle of the trial happening, it's crazy. And it can be heavy. It can be heavy, y'all. So while we were waiting for the verdict, we got word that out in Ohio, a police officer had shot a 16-year-old Black girl by the name of Ma'Khia Bryant. I hope I'm not butchering her name. I think it's Ma'Khia Bryant. And for me, I have always been. I'm huge on social justice. I mean, everybody, if you follow me, you know that about me. But the other piece is I try to be as objective and as fair as possible. I don't just jump and post the first thing I see, because I want to look at all the facts before I go and label somebody a racist or call it police brutality or whatever, because I know that the media has a job, right? The media has a job to put stories out that are going to get people to watch and get people to invest and get people to talk about it, right? So the more controversial it sounds, the bigger it's going to be. And so I know that the media plays those games, right? But at the same time, I also know that there's a lot of injustice going on, and um, we need to continue to fight the good fight. I didn't jump and post about it right away because, again, I want to know facts. I like to have as much information as possible before I truly get behind something, because you end up looking foolish when you're supporting the wrong thing, or if you haven't looked at every angle. And it's important that as Black people, we process information and don't just look at the first thing we see and go out and make an assumption and go out and get behind it, because it makes us look ignorant when we get behind the wrong things, right? And as much as police officers have been in the wrong the past several years and throughout history, right? Um, there's also been wrongdoing, and there's also good cops out there that are trying to do their job to the best of their abilities. And I'm not going to ignore that or gloss over that just because I feel a certain way about the way things have gone as of especially recently, right? So honestly, like as of late, like I hate watching this stuff. But if I'm going to talk about it, if I know that it's something that I want to be informed about, to a certain extent, I have to watch it, right? But it's never cool watching somebody, life be taken, right? So obviously, I watched the video of the altercation. It was so much going on in the video, and and if you watch the video in real time, it's just like, whoa, what the hell happened? And it just looks like there's a scuffle going on, and then next thing you know, the police officer's like, hey, 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 and then lets off 4 rounds, right? Hitting Ma'Khia Bryant right in the chest, killing her almost instantly. So that's that. So the big headline can honestly just be police officer kills 16-year-old African American female. And that's a true statement. That's exactly what happened. That's not even, a false statement at all. It's not, but it's not telling the whole story either. But that's what the media does, right? The media is going to give you what's going to be the most compelling headline, what's going to get the most clicks, right? And it's true. It's a true statement that a police officer did kill a 16-year-old female, African American female. But when you slow the video down, when you start looking at things, you start seeing a lot more, right? And one of the major things you see is that Ma'Khia Bryant has a knife and is about to attempt to stab the young lady she's in the altercation with. As a police officer, what do? You arrive to the scene. You were called to a scene because of an altercation. The altercation is all over the place, and you see someone with a deadly weapon attempting to attack someone else. What do? You can argue that you can tase them or what have you, but as an officer, I don't know that from what I hear, that that's not what they're trained to do in that situation. From what I understand, they're not trained to do that when they're trained to save a life, right? Unfortunately, they had to take a life to save another one. My thing is, if it was an act of racism, there were a lot of African Americans out there, and it was a lot of altercations appearing to happen a lot. They could have shot a couple of people. They could have, but it was like, hey, I was called to this scene. This girl is attempting to kill this other girl. What do? They're trained to shoot, right? Because now here was my thing. Did he really have to shoot her 4 times? I think if you'd have got her once, I mean, it once probably could have killed her. Who knows? Like because the way officers are trained, man, they shoot a lot. So, their aim is on point. So one shot was probably enough to take her life. But man, 4, it's tough. immediately I saw, oh, this girl had her whole life in front of her and whatnot. And I got to be honest, my first thought is, did she really have her life in front of her? Because if she would have killed this girl or even stabbed her, and she survived, it could have been still attempted murder. And, she, I don't know that she had her whole life in front of her. And I just believe that community failed her. Her community failed her. I hear that she was staying with some foster parents or something like that. Whole thing was crazy. From what I understand, they were jumping, like she was getting jumped, like, and that's the other thing. It's like there's two immediate sides of it, right? So you got the police side, like, did they just kill this girl? And I was this girl wrong? There's also another layer to that. If she was being jumped and you're trying to defend yourself, is it unheard of to have a weapon to try to defend yourself when multiple people are trying to jump you and trying to attack you? And if you've been going through this and you've just had enough, like it's a lot to really process here. I still want to, know the whole story. I still want to continue to read more into it. Um, but man, it's a lot to go with that, man. This to me, in no shape or form, like is this like necessarily the officer's fault? Like, I hate that he had to take her life, but if that's what he was trained to do, and we know that the officers are also trained to do some crazy stuff, but I mean, she and Micaiah was trying to stab another human being, and oh, it's unfortunate. And the thing is, they call the police. So if the police were coming along, like, I believe you can just continue to squab it out until the police get to let the police break it up. Because I truly believe if Makia had not had that knife in hand and actively using it or actively trying to use it, I do believe she would be here today. Um, there were adults around, there are people filming this. Like, that's one thing that I think as a community, as Black people, like, we've got to stop with the filming and all that and take action. Like we've got to step up and lead by example and do the right thing. The right thing can be the difference between a life being lost and us being here to tell the story later, right? In the climate we're in right now, it's not going to get better overnight. You've got plenty of people that are upset about the George Floyd verdict, right? And those people are going to somehow, some way share their anger, let their hate out, and we're going to have to deal with it, right? So we've got a lot we've got to deal with. There's a George Floyd mural here in Houston, and some coward, racist, spray painted "nigger lives don't matter." And it's to be expected, to be honest with you, unfortunately. Um, Actually, on my very first podcast, I alluded to my first podcast a couple times. Back last June, I had a incident where someone wrote on my Facebook timeline that Black lives do not matter. So we're in this kind of unspoken civil war as we speak, and it's only going to continue to grow. So, having said that, it may not be always the right thing to do to call the police. I hate to say it. I hate to say that, we may have to uh, step up and police things ourselves, and that's why we need leaders that can show up and can take charge of a situation, that can de-escalate situations, um, because that's what's truly needed right now. Because again, there are good cops out there, there are good white people out there. I want to put that out there, but we you don't know, you're rolling the dice anytime you call the cops, right? You really are. And some people may listen to this and think I'm tripping. No, like you don't know if you're going to get a Derek Chauvin, a Kim Porter, or are you going to get a Carl Winslow. Like you just don't know what you're going to get. And is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Because um, despite everything that was going on at the Bryant household, I don't think anyone wanted to see anyone's life taken, despite the fact that they were um, having, disputes and a huge altercation. You could see that everybody's like, "Oh, wow!" Like that just wasn't expected, right? So we really need to think twice about those things. Obviously, if there's danger and there's no other choice, yeah, we got to do what we got to do to try to save lives or whatever, right? But it almost needs to be to the point where the police is the last resort. Like, do we really need to call the police, or can we figure this out ourselves? And I think in most instances, we can figure things out ourselves, and it can be nonviolent, and we can settle things, because it's definitely going to be better to come to some sort of resolution together than to bring in the third party, which is the police, and potentially lose a life. Like, be the last time you are able to make a call, right? So, um, it's again unfortunate. This won't be the last time we hear of instances like this. Unfortunately, um, we're in an unspoken civil war, and it's going to take a lot of accountability to lead to that justice.
Just as the slave master in that day used Tom, the house Negro, to keep the field Negroes in check, the same old slave master today has Negroes who are nothing but modern Uncle Tom.
As I segue to my next topic, which is very related to the first two, it's really stems from Candace Owens and her remarks about George Floyd, about just her stance, period, and kind of what's going on with her. She she has been on Fox News and different shows. I think she was on, was it Sean Tucker or whatever his name is? And I mean, she's always like super comfortable around all the white boys. She loves to impart her wisdom to them on these situations. And sometimes I can't even continue listening to her, because it's just so sickening that somebody that looks like me hates people that look like me. It's just like, what the hell, right? So Candace Owens, man, she and one of the things is that she's so freaking intelligent. Like, she could be such an asset if she wanted to play for the right team. I don't know, what kind of deal she has or whatever, but I'm sure she makes a lot of money from white people, right? Because she is so Candace Owens. The best way for me to describe her, if any of y'all remember, back in 0405, Dave Chappelle had his variety show, The Chappelle Show. And one of his most famous sketches was about a gentleman by the name of Clayton Bigsby, who was a blind man, African American guy that was blind, that was a black white supremacist, not able to see or anything, which I think is almost metaphoric. Like, I think it's like his vision, like he didn't have vision, he couldn't see. I think that was very like well thought out, in the way that, I mean, just a brilliant sketch all the way around. But anyway, this guy was a black white supremacist, and He literally was he was a Klan member, like, and he never showed his face until till toward the end of the sketch, and then all these rednecks and other white supremacists were like, all taken aback by the fact that he's black, and he still doesn't get it. And like, they're saying the N word and everything, and he's like, "Where is him? Where is he? Get him! Get that N word!" And and he's so into it. Well, as funny as that was, as almost outlandish as that seemed, that is Candace Owens. She's a black white supremacist, right? And it's unfortunate because again, she's so, like, you can tell she's well educated, she's well spoken, um, and I want to say intelligent. I want to use it in the right context. Like, I think she's educated and well spoken, right? And but I believe she's using her intellect in reverse, and she's using it for the benefit of white supremacy, which to me is like the craziest thing ever. Now, for me, like, any platform that I'm ever able to have, like, if I cannot be um, a proponent for my race, if I have to censor the way I feel about um, social injustice or my views, like, it's just not it's not going to be for me. And I realize, like, I might not get all the deals that come with people that speak to certain narratives in a different way, and that's fine. I as much as I want to be as successful as I possibly can. Like, at the end of the day, I don't find success in selling your soul, right? And from what I understand, Candace Owens used to be super woke and was on the other side. I don't know what happened. I don't know if a brother did her dirty and now she just hates black people or black men, or her family did her wrong. Like, I don't know. But there has to be some sort of pain that she suffered from black people to make her hate us so much. And the self-hate is real, man. And I I don't really like to refer to black people as coons and whatnot, but man, it's the only thing that describes her, man. She's just a coon, man, and she's just, yeah. We've all heard of King Kong. She is Queen Coon. She is Queen Coon, and just give her her crown because she is the queen of coonery. She's been sipping coon juice uh, heavily the past few years, and but lately she's been on these interviews and she's been disagreeing with the verdict and all that. And it's just like, are you freaking kidding me? You're disagreeing with the verdict on a racist white cop that killed a man, an unarmed man? And then she goes on to read George Floyd's entire rap sheet on her show. She's reading line for line everything that he's ever done: weed charges, dope charge, pistol charge, all this stuff. She's going down the line. And what I don't get is, one, what difference does it make? Like, so we can't, so like a guy that committed crimes, like, no one said that George Floyd was a an angel, right? Like, yeah, we knew he had drugs in his system. We know that he had a rap sheet. Like, we know all of this. That doesn't give a police officer the right to take his life on the spot, especially when you talk about all these white guys who um, do mass shootings in movie theaters in the Batman premiere, and they get to walk out in cuffs, alive, well, no wounds, right? But yet you got a guy that the police called, or were called because he might have done a counterfeit $20 bill. It's totally different. His rap sheet doesn't matter. You're called, and as a police officer, like, when you're dealing with a felon, like you should be trained to deal with people that may have done crimes in the past or whatever, and you should be treating them the exact same way because sometimes people are born in different circumstances and are a product of their environment. That's a real thing. Just because you grew up in different circumstances and you can't understand that does not negate the fact that there are people that are literally born into unfortunate circumstances and have to scratch and claw just to survive, to make ends meet, to do whatever. And it gives you no right to treat them any differently. And these people need to just have an opportunity to figure it out. From what I understand, George Floyd was slowly turning his life around, right? He was doing things at the church. He was, but at the same time, old habits die hard, right? Like if you've been doing drugs, those habits creep up. We talked about it with DMX. Like it's hard to shake habits that are so addictive, right? But it does not give you the right to kill somebody. Black people aren't the only people that do drugs. I can tell you right now, white folks do a whole lot of drugs, and y'all don't kill them at the rate that y'all kill African Americans. So you can't sit here and tell me that it's about that. But back to Candace Owens. So she's reading off this man's rap sheet. She's disagreeing with the verdict, and some at some point she did say that, you know, uh, she's not saying his life should have been taken, but you're talking down on him, and you're trying to justify it. And if you just disagree with the verdict, I think she said she agreed that it was manslaughter. Like she wanted him to get like the lesser of the sentences or whatever, which is ridiculous. I don't understand, her mindset and what has um, encouraged her mindset. But it's ridiculous. It's just such a waste of such I'm gonna just say it, an intelligent Black woman. Like she's just a waste because she's using everything the wrong way. I I don't get how someone can hate their own so much to where you're doing this. And here's the thing: those people that she's placating to and playing up to, that demographic, they they love it because she is like their savior. Like they love when she posts content, or the Hodge twins, or any of these other coons. They love when they post stuff, and they love sharing it because it's like we've got a Black person speaking about this stuff, and they feel like she gets it. Oh, she gets it, and they just love it. But at the end of the day, they still hate Black people. They're just using her. She's like their little mascot. And I wish she understood how much she was being used as a pawn in their little Ponzi scheme to continue to push their agenda, to continue to push the envelope on white supremacy. It's ridiculous that she continues to and that's why it's hard to say she's intelligent, because if you're intelligent, like, you should be able to discern what's happening to you. What's happening to you is a bunch of people that hate Black people are using you to perpetuate a cycle of white supremacy so that you can continue to uh, kill unarmed African American people and get away with it, because your Black ass is up here talking about it like it's um, as if you're white, and as if you have their viewpoint. And she can't come and say that she cares about the Black community and does those things, right? Now, again, is everybody in the Black community an angel? Of course not. Yes, there are people in the Black community that need to be held accountable for their actions and so forth and so on. But if you really cared about the Black community, you would not speak of the Black community the way you do. You would not continue to perpetuate this cycle of white supremacy um, with your black ass. Like you're black, like you are a black female. Like, do you not understand that you are being used? Do you not understand that they don't really like you? They're using you because the minute Candace Owens says something that doesn't align with their white supremacist views, they will throw her away in a heartbeat and not think twice about it. But she knows how to say the right things. I'm sure they're giving her everything she needs to be successful and to continue doing what she does to keep her platforms going. I know they are. I know they're giving her all those resources and the funding and whatnot. So do your thing. If selling out your people for to represent another community, if that's your thing, do you. But just understand that you cannot come out and say that you care about the African American community and you care about Black people, and we're the ones that don't really care about the community because we kill each other and all. If that's the narrative you want to continue to push, so be it. But understand that that is not constructive. That is not helpful. If you truly cared about the community, you would have boots on the ground helping the community, right? You would not be on the side of white supremacy because that's what you're on. And it's so disheartening. I don't care that you're married to a white guy and all that. That's fine. You love who you love. My problem is the way that you handle things, the way that you are always trying to defend the position of the white supremacist and keep that going. You are a huge part of the problem. When Black people and other minorities allow themselves to push the agenda of white supremacy, you guys keep it alive more than even white supremacists, because you are now pushing that agenda forward with your black ass. And it's infuriating. But as we wrap up, Candace Owens, man, like, you really need to get a wake up call. It's we're in the midst of a civil war, and you chose your side. Just remember, you need to stay over there. If you there, you need to just stay over there, because we don't want nothing to do with you, Clayton Bigsby. All right, we don't want nothing to do with you. You chose your side. You do what you do. Um, it's crazy, but folks, remember, we're in the middle of a civil war. Be ready for whatever. It's not the end of it. We are not nearing the end of it. Like, this was not this Derek Chauvin verdict was not the series finale of white supremacy, or series finale of racism, or series finale of social justice. It's not. It's only the beginning. And we must keep the momentum going. We must continue to let our voices be heard. We must continue to push for the right things to happen. We've gotta be vigilant. I we will definitely be playing right into the game if we are like just kumbayaing over this one guilty verdict, and we still have so much that needs to be done. We still have a bunch of brothers and sisters out here who are fearful of their life every time they're pulled over by a cop. We should not feel that way. We should not feel a way when we're passing a cop like, oh my God, like, we should not get that anxiety. And until justice is truly served through lots and lots of accountability along the way, it's always going to be that way. So just remember, this is a small victory. It's a small victory and a large victory at the same time. I don't want to undermine how important of a moment it was, because it's a very important moment. But we must continue to the momentum of those important moments, right? I always talk about sports, right? A sports organization, when they win one championship, then that next year they're trying to do it again. They're not just trying to be one and done. Well, in most cases, they're not. In most cases, they are trying to keep that momentum and win consistently. And that's what we need to do. Like we need to look at this as, hey, we got our first title, right? Okay, how are we going to retool and get some more wins? How are we going to retool and hang some more banners? Because that is when we're truly going to see forward progress in our community and see some form of normalcy, um, and with our community and the police, right? Because at the end of the day, neither one is going to go away. The police department is not going to go away, and Black people are not going to go away. So at some point, we've got to get to a place where there's a healthy relationship and a healthy median, because um, it's going to be beneficial for both sides. But until then, it's been an interesting, few weeks. We'll continue to wait for the Derek Chauvin sentencing. We'll continue to wait and hear more about the Ma'Khia Bryant situation. And we need to continue to stay on Candace Owens' ass. And you Black folks that follow her, and if you're following her for anything other than to listen to her stupidity so you can speak against it, you a coon too. If you buying into her stuff, you a coon too. I will say this. She's so good with her words that sometimes she can kind of get you in and be like, okay, she has a point there, but she quickly goes left. She quickly goes left. Be cautious of those voices you listen to and understand what you're listening to. Um, because everything that, as my grandmother would say, everything that shine is not gold. She is Candace Owens is as much of a white supremacist as Donald Trump, as any of these other people that we view as white supremacists that do no good for the Black community. She's just like them. She just happens to be in blackface. Anyway, thank you so much for listening this week. Follow me on Instagram at JarvisSam _. You can also follow the show's Instagram, the Jarvis Sam Show. Check me out at my website, www.jarvissam.com. Content there, a lot more coming out. We got Patreon in the works, along with, I'm going to dabble with this. Apple just released some information about premium pods. So I will definitely be dabbling in the premium pod field as well. So check me out. Thanks as always for listening, and keep in mind, we're in a civil war, y'all. So be ready for whatever. Keep the peace. Lead, don't follow. Don't record, lead, lead, lead. You can take anything away from this. Let's lead our communities, y'all. Y'all take care.